Show's
Ready?
live on my end.
Now we're ready.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Whoa.
We're here.
We have new faces. What?
I think it's the first time I'm doing live on my profile.
That's
Ooh.
awesome. Congrats. Welcome,
Fun.
Brooklyn. Welcome, Sam. Today
Yeah.
is a content power hour.
Ooh, and Morgan,
Yeah.
Drum
what
roll.
what is a content power hour?
I know, it's a great question. I have to be honest with you. I'm personally so excited for this today because this is a first of maybe hopefully a few different events that we're doing, reviewing and comparing and contrasting content from different B2B companies with the team at Beam, and I intentionally made that rhyme, Brooklyn Nash and Sam Hembree. So welcome, guys.
Hashtag Beam Team.
Is that going to be your new hashtag, guys?
Might be.
Oh,
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
So today we're going to be going around and doing some roundtable questions. We've selected a couple companies. We're reviewing them today. We'll talk about them in a second. But Nick, question of the day, which we teed up earlier and fitting to the theme today. Sam, you posted about this the other day. What's your biggest content pet peeve? So for everyone who's joining us in the chat, drop it in the chat. We'd love to say hello. What's your biggest content pet peeve? But Sam, Brooklyn, Nick, what's your biggest content pet peeve?
Do we only get one?
right.
Isn't that true though, man?
It's a real toss up between people that steal your content and then take credit for it, and they don't like, and then all of a sudden you'll get tagged and you're like, didn't so and so post this before? Like, yeah, Morgan created it. Or the blank like HubSpot or like company reshare, just blankly, like you just see like the drone army going like reshare all of this, and it's like, oh, I guess I could just follow your company page. I don't need to follow any of your people.
Don't get me started on plagiarism, Nick. We could have a whole other session on that.
Have you been
Totally
plagiarized
imagine.
before, Brooklyn?
I don't think I have. Not that I've seen, but I've seen it happen plenty of times.
Okay.
It's always annoying.
Yeah, Nick, mine's similar. But like the not giving native value in the posts, which can show up as resharing, but yeah, like seeing it a lot with company posts, not adding any context there, or just like adding the bare minimum in a link. Twitter style, yeah. So you start seeing that a lot, and then you kind of subconsciously tune it out. Don't even pay attention anymore.
Brooklyn, how about you?
Mine is, so the caveat here is I used to do this and now it's my biggest pet peeve. So mine is treating content marketing as synonymous with SEO. Like the first maybe 4 years of freelancing, I'd talk to a company, talk about the work we do. I'd be like, great, we can jump into SEO research and start putting together, 4 articles a month, each one aimed at a different keyword. And that was for me content marketing. Now another 4 or 5 years on, that's like a piece of content marketing and an important one, but I think it puts things in a box where you're focused on just top of funnel and just driving traffic and very little on actually engaging your audience further down.
Couldn't agree more. I think, and I had posted this on Sam, mine is the wall of text, especially on LinkedIn, where you have to do so. I have to admit, I'm probably a dominant mobile user of LinkedIn just because it's easier for me to interact like that. So when I see the novel in the feed, I'm like, nah, I can't. I don't have enough brain power today to get through. Cool.
Especially mobile.
Oh, especially mobile, though. All right. Well, if you're here on our various channels, thanks for arranging. If you jumped over to YouTube from our original stream or you're watching on any one of our profiles, welcome. Hello. We'd love to see you say hi and chat sometime today. But Nick, we are comparing and contrasting a couple companies today, right?
We are.
Do you want to introduce one of them?
Do you want to go in I guess we'll start with Glean.
Mhm.
So when I first looked at Glean, the first thing that came to my mind, and Morgan's going to laugh, is this is what Google search should have been. Because we've all been looking, you're like, where did that get put? Where did you guys put that? Or like, brand assets or marketing, like, where did Morgan put this? What the heck did he call it? Trying to search through and find everything.
Totally. And if you want to check out Glean, you can go to glean.com. We'll throw it in one of the chats that we have. The other company that we're reviewing today is Torch, which maybe we'll start our convo with. And Torch is, as they say, a people development platform, but they offer integrated coaching services for, it appears to be, larger companies. So, and that's at torch.io. So we have glean.com, torch.io. And if time allows, we may get to some backup candidates we have that maybe we're prepared to talk about. So for the rest of this session today, we're just going to be, I think the goal of today is to have some fun. We're going to go around, we're going to answer all different kinds of questions. We could add some funky music if we wanted at different times. This is just a fun sesh. So as it comes up, throw questions in chat. If you want us to take another look, or if you want us to explain something more, please ask. We'd love to. This is a workshop for a reason. So let's start with Torch. And we don't have buzzers, but should I just nominate somebody?
I think that sounds like fun.
All right, Sam, can you explain what Torch does in 30 seconds or less?
You said people development. They're a platform for coaching and training. That's it.
I like it. That's all. Brooklyn, did you have anything? Is there anything you would add or like extend on, or like is there anything else that you got from looking at Torch's like homepage, especially, or their like what do they do? Is that basically all?
Oh, you're muted.
You might be muted.
Every time. Sorry, Sam. Literally every time I'm on a call with Sam. So, I mean, that's basically it. But I think the big picture I jumped on and I was like, how have I never heard of this before? This is exactly what's in the conversation right now, from onboarding to training high performing or making high performing employees feel valued, to diversity and inclusion. So it's really cool to see it all laid out like that.
Mm-hmm. How about let's stick with Brooklyn for a sec, since you're the content pro. Blog. If you look at their blog, what's a pro? What's a con?
Yeah, I have 3 for each, or 3 and 2. Is that fair? Can we do that?
Sure. Let's do it.
First off, because I just saw the comment from Amanda, so hopefully you're still on here. But that pet peeve, I should have included that one. That's by far my biggest pet peeve, not citing the original source. So you have to go to a 2019 article that links to a 2017 infographic, which links to a 2013 ebook. So annoying. Anyway, pet peeves for a reason. I have to call that out. For Torch, a few pros for sure. I think they have even just seeing the topics and their search traffic, I think it's pretty clear they have a clear strategy that's informed by SEO. They have nearly 1,000 keywords in the top 3, so they're clearly doing something right. And they have you can see in the blog itself, if you scroll down, like a range of topics too that I think are oriented towards those keywords. But at the same time, it seems like they have a good balance of big picture thought leadership content. Like they have one on the constant unfolding of leadership, where it's more of an interview or profile. And then they have specific, clearly SEO focused topics like top down or bottom up management. So I like seeing that mix. The con is kind of the flip side of that mix. It seems like there's kind of an imbalance in, I don't want to say the quality of the content, but the voice and the approach between those two types of content. So the thought leadership piece, that's kind of a profile of this leader, is very narrative oriented. It's almost like you're reading a profile in the New Yorker or something, where it's like, when I first met her 7 years ago, it starts with a story. It's very narrative driven. It pulled me in. And then on the flip side, the specific topics are a little drier and more direct. And you can tell that one's written for SEO and one's written more for repurposing on social or newsletter or sending to partners and customers. They just serve two different purposes. And I'm not usually a fan when you see that imbalance between the types of content. I think ideally you can have that narrative approach, high quality content across everything you're producing.
Do you, just a question for you, Brooklyn, on that was like, as I was scrolling through this blog on Torch, I mean, there's a lot of content here. And it was interesting to me, like there wasn't that much about the product itself. And I didn't know, that was the thing that sort of stood out to me, where it was a lot about like the context of the company and like where they sit in the industry and some of the things like resources focused. Is that, do you find that as a good thing? Like they're not so product focused, or is that maybe a drawback where it's not as clear as what they offer?
I see that as a pro, especially because it seems like they have a lot of great case studies that they mix in with the blog, and I'm sure are promoting elsewhere or pulling into sales. So the fact that their content itself is focused on getting the most out of your mentorship relationship, like how to become a great manager, things that will benefit their audience but aren't directly tied to the platform. I think that's the entire goal of content marketing, is to start the conversation and then say it's up to sales to really drive the product home. Especially for, I mean, on both of these sites, they seem much more mid-market and enterprise focused. So it's really is the journey. It's not like you're looking for that instant conversion.
Sam, any thoughts, pros and cons on the blog?
Brooklyn Wing. I had noticed like their customer, they had like interviews with customers and relevant experts that were great. And also this is a small thing, but I liked their consistent color palette on their images. It was really like pleasing to the eye. You don't always see that on blogs where you have that like consistent imagery. So yeah, those are, but I really liked Brooklyn's points. And also I think there's some cool things when we jump into social and like how they could be using those on their social channels. Sweet.
Any last thoughts on their blog? Because we're just going to keep on going through our compare and contrast. Nick, Brooklyn, anybody?
I could just say the one thing going through this, and the same with social, coming from a sales standpoint, it's very high level. It doesn't make me think, well, this isn't for me at all. There's no bifurcation of like, oh, this is specifically for me. So it's very open, which is okay for high level, but for social, sometimes to have that conversation, I find that I just ignore it after a while because it doesn't feel like it's for me.
It's great feedback. So, Nick, how about when it comes to LinkedIn, what are 3 words that immediately come to mind when you see their profile?
Corporate promotion reshared.
You want say some more? Say some more.
What happens a lot of the time is, and I don't like calling it the drone army, but that's kind of what it feels like, is sales gets their voice taken away from them. And when the reason why you follow somebody is for that unique point of view of where they see the gap in the future, right? Of like, where do you see things? But a lot of corporate entities steal that away from sales because they need to validate it or vet it. Yet they're making cold calls and emails all day and they don't read all of that. And so when I went on to their look at how their content was shared, there's never any uniqueness. There's never any additions, any voice that they add. They've taken the voice away from sales and it's just reshared. And so it's tough because if I was following these people, it would be really hard to have a conversation with them about this content because it's always taking me away to somewhere else instead of being able to consume and feed, play to the algorithm, and just have good conversations that build a following.
How do you feel about that, Brooklyn? You clearly resonated with
Mine was very similar, but very similar. My 3 words were professors do webinars.
Huh.
Because like the promoting a lot of webinars, which is great. Like it's a very clearly a great channel, but in the language, it's very academic, which I mean, kind of makes sense to a certain extent given their audience. It's very people ops, HR heavy, but it's just a little too far. Like the one line I copied down was, how can organizations align their development programs in unique strategies and values? See how Torch's configurable platform helps you align development programs to your distinct values and competencies. So that's like 6 buzzwords / overly academic phrases in that one paragraph that's on their social. And I think there's, look, like I said before, I think it looks like what they do is really cool and really needed right now. And there's got to be a more conversational way of talking about what it is, why it matters, how it works, and so on. Even from the company page, like you don't have to use that academic language just because you feel like you're talking to a chief people officer.
Sam, 3 words.
Yeah, the 3 words I put were branded, templated, and then I was going to put either like announcements or quotes. But I did put quotes in there because I saw they had like quite a few of those quote cards, and thinking branded templated because they have a lot of like the Canva imagery that typically, like if I just see it, makes me kind of think an event or something kind of formal. So pros, I was thinking that they're really active, like they're not dormant. That is great because sometimes you just go and there's nothing. They use different formats, like they've got some images, they've got the quotes. But cons, and we've kind of talked about these a little, but they're not sharing the native value, which was, my pet peeve on in the beginning. There's a lot of reshares without the context. There's a lot of announcements. So I think they could strike a better balance between like the self-serving posts with like the posts that are informative or entertaining. Yeah, and I thought they had like some good content on the blog that could, like a low lift way that they could start putting it up on their socials, even just to like pull some of those H2s. Like they have the first time managers feel like they're jumping in from ground zero. Here's 3 things that managers could start doing, 1, 2, 3, and kind of, not have to rewrite it necessarily, but just repackage it in a way that's like short and helpful for social. So I think that would get some more native engagement going on their LinkedIn.
And they have a lot of content in their blog that's organized in exactly what you're talking about. Like you could take the H2s from each of the blogs and do one line after it, and do that for all the posts, all the blog posts, and you have, I don't know, at least 50, 100 social posts right there.
Yeah, definitely. They've also got, those interviews. So even if they pulled like the most interesting piece from the interview, like a quote or whatever resonated the most, and then tag the person who said it and the company, I feel like they'd get some, the people who are tagged would like appreciate the shout out. That could be another low lift way to add some more beneficial content there.
Good call.
It was interesting because the 3 words I come up with was like disjointed customer experience, because it was funny looking through. I think I looked at like 2 months worth of their company posts, and I have no idea what they do from their company feed. But you land on their website and you immediately figure out what they do in like 3 seconds. And it's interesting where it's almost like if you think of the dial between like ultra promotional and about your products and services, and then not at all promotional, I think they've sort of swung too far back, where even though they've had really great sort of quotes or promotions for webinars, it doesn't actually, like, I don't actually have any sense from their social content that they do coach matching for companies. Like that never came up in any of their content in the last couple of months. And I feel like even just like or even a case study, or even some little post, or like, look at this success story, or look, we just rolled out this, or just something, so that when I scroll on their feed, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Maybe I could interact with this in my company. So it's sort of disjointed in that way, where their social was very webinar focused, quote heavy, and not at all about the product. And then the website, obviously, when you click in, you're like, oh, I finally understand what they do. So that was what had stood out to me.
That's an interest. Can we?
Yeah,
I'm trying to
dive
figure out
in.
the best way. I feel like I disagree a little bit, but I'm
I
not
like it.
quite sure how to articulate why.
Okay.
And maybe it's just the sales perspective versus like content perspective, but I don't know that I see that as a bad thing.
Interesting.
Especially for a company like Torch, where I assume right now they're just even trying to educate the market that their platform is even a thing, that this is something that tech can help resolve. So I feel like it's more of brand awareness or even category awareness for social. And then once that's built, especially with retargeting and things like that, I feel like you can then get more specific with the conversation further down the funnel. But that's a very content marketing focused perspective.
No, it's actually interesting, because it's funny, I also don't disagree with you. Like, it's like, yeah, of course there needs to be market education in this. I think maybe I wasn't looking for the dial, if it's 1 to 10 and it's at 1 right now. I didn't want it to go to like 5 or 6. Like, even just 2 is fine.
Just to a 2.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Just like, because I found one post that was, and I think they're the video posts, which are like, request a demo, which is very heavy call to action. I don't know if I like that. Or like, see how we combat the problem of limited access to coaches and mentors. But in sort of the overall content, it never like stood out to me. Like, if I clicked follow on Torch, and maybe that's where their customer experience is, somebody already knows that they do coaching, and so to follow Torch means just to get deeper. So I don't know how they've constructed their funnel too, or funnel is such a horrible word in this sense, but customer experience, where like, what is the purpose of following the company page? I don't know. It's a good question.
It leads into our
that
next point too.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
It does. So that made me think of one more thing that maybe feels like a little bit of a gap or a missed opportunity that might help bridge the gap there. Is I didn't see a whole lot of data oriented pieces of content. Like, I went to their resources, and the most data heavy, where it says literally data findings leading by the numbers, was from 2019. And in this space, especially since it's so much in the conversation right now, I feel like there's a big opportunity to do original research around diversity and inclusion, around onboarding effectiveness, around how high performers feel about leadership. Like, there's, a dozen topics that they could go deep on, and then build, I think, in that way, both their category authority, like leadership, and connect that through to their product kind of in that content as they go. Because there's so much research you could do in this space. It doesn't all have to be like McKinsey and Gartner. Like, SaaS companies can run it, and I think it's worth the investment.
Totally. So Nick, next segment, what's up with sales?
So we've kind of got to give them credit. Their employee advocacy versus most companies is great. Like, if you look at they got almost 400 employees, I believe it was, and they had over 140 that were posting in the past 30 days. So even though they're not putting their unique spin on it, they're showing up. So in terms of employee advocacy, got to give them credit where credit is due. They're doing a good job. But the next question is, are sales and marketing playing nice? Well, I'll paint a picture that I've lived all too vividly. Is marketing comes down and says, we need leads, people and seats, butts and seats for our webinar. Here's this random list I pulled out of SalesNav or some other resource. Go call them. Get them there. Everything is showing me, like, I like how Camille Trent said it yesterday, that it's great content is product led. And so it informs you of what you're going to get, and it's consumable in feed. When I see this, it's a very manual, labor intensive sales process that isn't doing the work for you, because either they're running ad campaigns to get this content to have those 14,000 followers, or the reality is they're going very traditional and they're cold calling and emailing and they're hounding people to get them in the seats. And so the content, they're not earning trust at scale necessarily, because they're not talking as if the HR is talking. HR is really hard to get on the phone. They don't necessarily want to answer your emails as much as like sellers or maybe even marketers. Although me and Morgan have found that to be a fun game too.
Uh-huh.
So you're creating a lot of conflict and a lot of friction just to start a conversation, and you're not making it in an easy place for them to consume. So now you're defaulting to cold call and email, traditional numbers game. I feel like it's just, they have such great content. They have thought leadership. It's all there, but none of it is actually getting put to work in a way that people want to naturally consume it. So now it's falling on sales shoulders once again to build pipeline.
It was, the other thing that stood out really quick was that there is a lot of the sales team, just by the numbers, that has a sales navigator license. So they're using LinkedIn for research at the very least, and they might be using it for outbound prospecting and connecting and maybe pitching people. But very few, I think I only found 2 sales profiles that were active in the sense of like commenting on posts and posting their own content, and more than just a blank reshare of something that the company posted, which is just a missed opportunity. That's all. And it doesn't have to be the whole sales team. Like, that's not the goal here. You don't need all 80 account executives or however it's structured to actually be posting content all of the time. It's just, there's an opportunity for your already active salespeople to leverage Sales Navigator in a way to engage with the people who are active out on LinkedIn in your target audience. And yeah, HR is not like a marketing audience. And so the strategy is going to be a little bit different, but it definitely stood out to me. Like, there is a lot of investment in Sales Navigator and not a lot of use for it beyond research and probably outbound. Those were things that stood out.
I have kind of a big picture question for you two. What is it? How does that change for an audience that maybe isn't as active on LinkedIn? Like, what would that actually change in your approach on Sales Nav and outreach, and when you turn to cold call and email?
So to clarify, Brooklyn, what you're asking is, so if they were active, how would it change their approach? Or
more for the space? I mean, this is very much a what do you call it? Blanket statement that may or may not be true. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you often have go to market much more active on LinkedIn, less so HR, people ops, right? So would you try to look for those in the space who are active, or would you depend on Sales Nav to then personalize the outreach you're doing elsewhere?
Since they're not as active on the platform, it's a great question. Yeah.
Do you want me to go and dive right into this and kind of like give you like the lay of the land, or
sure, Nick?
Would you like me to go?
Give me your 2-minute version.
Okay. So like anything else, people trust certain voices. And so even though you look at the lay of the land on LinkedIn, 90% of people are just awking from far away. They just want to consume. That's okay. But we have to play that to our advantage, because there's 9% of people, give or take, every platform's a little bit different and persona, that are engagers, and there's 1% that are producing content. Well, look at who's performing at the trade shows, who's actually giving the talks, who are those trusted voices in the world. Get in their comments, see who the engagers are in the space that are your ICP, and put them into a list, and then stay on them and start nurturing those relationships. You don't have to sell them, but you need to be known by them, because it's all about trust by association and earning trust at a scale, because content can do what we can't as sellers. Like, if we're cold calling and emailing one-on-one, that's a long process, but content can spread. And LinkedIn loves to go and like push content with the comments. So you're getting trust through these people. Well, there's also the triggers, so that the people on the sales now you talked about, like, that are more active, look who's posting. So go and take your target accounts, just go to spotlights and Sales Nav, search who's posting, and just engage with them. Nobody says you have to start with HR. HR problems are felt other places. So what are those signs and symptoms of pain? Like you're a detective or a doctor trying to go and find that. Use your sales nav features to find that. And then don't just sell them. Talk to them. Have a conversation. Use that to your advantage. Content is powerful. So there's like the trusted high level that you get trust just through association, and you're getting kind of picking off those people, comment, and then go through the comments and comment. The other side is using your sales nav filters to find the people that are raising their hand saying, hey, I want to be active in the space. Talk to me, because birds of a feather flock together. So if you're talking to them in the comments, even though people aren't commenting back, it's getting seen. And then it just compounds over time.
So where do I sign up for your social selling consulting package?
Yeah.
Just going to internalize that for a minute.
Yeah. So we have to move on, and I'll just make one statement, and then I have a question for Sam about the founders, just to prep you. Is the thing that we make a mistake when it comes to different industries, and the thing that we see most often is that we presume that because most people in the industry aren't active, that they aren't watching. And so that's where that content and comment play comes in a lot. And that's especially true in go-to-market, where we see a higher percentage who are active. But if there are 800 million profiles on LinkedIn, or some enormous amount, and a great chunk of them are daily active users, so they're scrolling through their feeds somehow. And so the question is, what are they seeing? Is it your content? Is it your comments? Or is it somebody else's? And that's the leverage point, really, that we can leverage the active 1 to 5% or whatever to get in front of the 90 to 95%. That's all. Sam, where are the founders at? What are they doing?
I love this. Yeah, so I took a look at like their CO, their CMO, their CRO, and they have like really good followings, but they're not super active on social. Some like resharing happening. So yeah, I think that this is a missed opportunity. I think that in order like to create that culture of sharing on social, it helps to start at the top. Like if you see your leaders sharing, then you know that it's a priority. And the other thing I was thinking is like, I know everyone's busy, so like having that support to share can be really helpful. So like having someone or a team, whether that's like an evangelist, content team, comms team, advocating for the social sharing efforts. I've seen that be helpful in the past, like creating campaigns or prompts for the team, organizing takeovers. I think there's things that the content team and others can be helping with that effort. But yeah, I don't see the founders too active on social.
It's a huge opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And to anybody on the floor, what's the buzz? How's their earned media? Maybe even on a scale of 1 to 10. What did you see? What did you find?
Can we all pick a number and hold it up at the same time?
Oh,
on a scale of 1 to 10?
We need our little placards, right?
Just their fingers.
Yes.
Like heads up, 7 up.
Yeah.
Sure, let's do it.
I got mine.
We want to. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
3,
2, 1,
2,
go. 1. Yeah, I was like, it was
Oh.
kind of low. I was like 3-ish.
What did you say, Sam? I couldn't see it.
I had a question.
Oh.
I was searching and I had a little trouble finding some of the earned media.
I saw their Series C announcement, obviously, but that was the only recent piece that I saw.
Okay, but that was actually, I mean, that's exciting for the company. I love it. Of course, you need an announcement, but earlier, so both companies, Torch included, they pinned the announcement on the top of their blog, which, like, I just don't, people aren't going to care about that as much as they'll care about truly helpful content. So, like, that doesn't, it's not a pro in my mind, right?
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Any other thoughts on earned media? Because we have one last little fun segment, and then we got to get on to Glean. I hear silence.
Yeah, we have a whole other company.
I know.
I was just looking at their LinkedIn page, and normally they had like the promoted on the side, but they don't have that for their profile. So maybe they're not doing that. But it's just kind of like what we were talking about earlier. They have volume. Like there's actually something there. So it's not. That's why I went like middle of the road. I just don't think it's being fully leveraged. So that's why I put it at 5. Is that it's there. They've done a lot of the hard work. It just hasn't been put to work. Missed opportunity. Great opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And mine was like a selfish too, because like very self-centered, because it looks like a really cool company and I can't believe I've never heard of it. So like, and I'm on LinkedIn a ton, like I'm looking up new SaaS companies all the time. Like it's part of my job and I hadn't heard of them, which is a bummer because it seems really cool in space. So that's where the 2 came from. But that's just like one person.
All right, so to wrap up this review and compare and contrast, thank you, yay, Torch, for participating in this, can we find some words that rhyme with torch? I got porch, that's the easy one.
I had porch, that's all I got.
I think fork is like a half rhyme, like in a poetry thing. Fork could work.
Slant rhyme there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was trying to make Porsche rhyme, but
yeah,
Porsche,
torch and Porsche.
Mm-hmm.
Scorch is a good one.
Scorch,
yeah. Ooh,
Scorch.
Of course. That's why we have an audience. Thank you. Okay, well, if there's no other rhyming, this is a challenge. The most challenging question of today is finding names that rhyme with our company. I think we're going to move on to our other friend, Glean.
Let's do it.
Glean.com. So, Brooklyn, what do they do in 30 seconds or less?
They connect all your shit so you can find it.
Yes.
Honestly,
that's exactly what I thought too. I think I even said that to Morgan before we started.
Like I haven't used Glean, but I've used a competitor. I won't name drop them because I don't know. But it was great. Like you could just search in one bar and it was on Slack, on Google Drive, on email, on your knowledge center. And it was a much better search experience. Like, I don't know what AI or whatever is behind it. I'm not a product guy, but it worked great. So this is what I'm imagining for them.
Yep.
That's awesome. I too had that same impression. Sam, did you have the same sense? Yeah. Okay.
Same sense. I thought it sounds awesome. Like I want to use it. If you even don't know what it's called, it can help you. So
I wonder if it's a product that it was so much more clear to me, but I'll just make a comment on like top line messaging here before we get into the blog, which is like within reading the header and the subheader on their homepage, I knew exactly what Glean did. Like I had the full picture, and just as a compare and contrast, I didn't understand what Torch really did until I scrolled down and interacted more with what they had to offer. I suspect that's because Torch is moving more mid-market enterprise, so there's probably language constraints that they're running against. And Glean is also a product instead of a service, probably. I mean, Torch is kind of a product too. I don't know. It was interesting to see like how quick and clear Glean was compared to our previous company.
I agree. I got excited looking at their profile. It's like, yes, that's exactly like it put a picture in my head instantly of my workflow and how it would make life better. Where, the other way around, it was like, okay, what exactly do you do?
I think I had done Brooklyn first. So Sam, this time, a blog, pros and cons of Glean's blog.
Yeah, like this is funny. I wrote this down again. I'm such a visual person. The images are really cool.
They're fun.
They're like branded. They're they're not stock photos. So props there. The other thing I noticed was there wasn't a lot there. Like what is there seems to like talk about themselves and like how to use the tool quite a bit. I mean, it says at the top like what's new. at Glean. So I was just thinking, like, personally, I'd love to see more content that's, like they have how to grow inside a hyper growth startup and some of that more broadly appealing content. But yeah, I'll toss it to Brooklyn because he always has really good insights on blog stuff.
Yeah, I mean, leave it to. I did not notice the images, so I love that you did. You did again. I think, yeah. So a very small thing that maybe doesn't seem like it matters too much, but I always encourage that the companies we work with is all the bylines are owned by, for the most part, other people on the team. I think I saw one marketing byline in there. The rest is from engineering, from the leadership team. I think it's just a cool way to give your blog posts just a little bit more authority as you start to share them out on other channels. And then it kind of incentivizes those. Like then you get your engineering team and your product team sharing out articles, and it just makes for a tighter collaboration between content and the rest of the org. So I love seeing that. I also saw a pretty wide range of topics, which was great. And then probably the biggest pro for me was the writing. I think is great. I think it has a very conversational tone. Like Lauren Zhu's on the PCA it starts out with what she was thinking when she was in college and what came after. She has a spoiler alert in there, like just tells a little story to set up the article. And I think making it personal and conversational like that is great. So yeah, not one pro and con. I have a couple cons too.
Yeah.
So the very conversational tone, that's the positive. What I was missing was some more specificity and depth to the articles. So I plugged like 3 articles into a word counter, and like the meat of the article. So besides the intro and the conclusion, they were between 500 to 700 words. And some of these topics, it's not like you need to make things longer just for the sake of being longer, but some of these topics really could use more detail and a little bit more on the how and the what, rather than just an overall description of what the topic is. So I think I would like to see some more depth there. And then I saw the cadence thing too that you mentioned, Sam. So, I mean, it looks like they launched their blog about 9 months ago, and they've published 15 articles since then. Which, I mean, if they're early, I don't know where they're at with the team, but I mean, they have a lot to say in the work assistant space. So I'd imagine picking up that cadence would be beneficial.
Sweet. Well, that's some hot content insights from you both. I also learned a ton again going through this. Nick, how about their LinkedIn? What are 3 words that immediately come to mind when you see their LinkedIn presence?
I'm going to repeat the same as last time. And it's such a missed opportunity because they have such great content and it's really fun. Actually, funny enough, I saw TikTok recruitment screaming all over it because of how they're a more personal voice, but they're not as active, like overall percentage wise. A lot of it's the reshares. There's nobody really finding their voice. It seems to be more engineering driven, which isn't a bad thing. And a lot of the marketing doesn't sound it's talking to sales, and there's a collaboration of what's actually converting, what gets people excited. It's a lot of like, I think this will be good. It's kind of the what I'm getting, because it's not turning into a conversation starter. It's just, but I didn't find it as highly promotional.
It's interesting because the thing that came to mind was product-centered posts. And this sort of showed up in the blog a little bit, but I think it's really evident on their social presence, particularly their company page, which is there's a lot about the product itself, which is fine, but there's not a lot about the context around the product, which is almost like a mirror image of our previous company, where it's like, oh, there's a lot about how great our company is. We raised some money. Here's this thing that you can do with the tool. And that's not bad in my book, especially if you're more product led. But ironically, on their site, there's only a get a demo button. There's not like an immediate sign up button. So there's not a way to like drive immediate attention to the product. It's always like a speak to a salesperson. And that might be due to the audience that they're targeting. So I was desperate for more what does the world that you want us to live in? Like, tell me more about my seamless life. Like, let's talk about what this means and not just like the product itself. So
I was screaming PLG, eh? It's
I know.
They got the get a demo, which is an interesting word choice for a demo. They have huge companies just showing that they're, leaning more to the enterprise, but they're talking about like seamless efficiency. It just screams like PLG. Hey, plug this in right now, connect your apps, and let's get you running within 5 minutes. Like it just, that's what I was kind of expecting, right? Like scroll down the page and they have this like hidden PLG product kind of like halfway down.
Yeah. Anyways, other 3 words. Brooklyn, Sam?
It's funny you said product because the 3 words I had for Glean were PMMs meet social. Because that's exactly what it felt like. Product meets social. A little bit on the blog, it's great that the engineering team is in there, but then especially on social, like just very product heavy language when there's a little bit more of the how and the why that you can talk about.
Yeah, I used similar words as last time, but one of the things that stood out was like casual. That was another word because their voice does have a more casual tone, like in comparison to the previous. Like I found one post, we've all been there, that moment when you really need to find a doc that exists but can't find it anywhere. Like I feel like they have a more human sense about it. But yeah, I agree. Like I second everything that y'all said. I feel like there's still the reshares that need some added context. And this is also getting into earned media, but just from their like social presence, I could tell that they're getting featured in other articles. They're getting shout outs on social. Like their software engineer, their chief growth officer were getting featured on a podcast. And I felt like there was more that they could be getting out of that by like repackaging that, repurposing it for their social, because they're out and about doing cool things. So I liked that.
I would agree.
Do you think they need more memes? I feel like with their space, they just need more memes because they're literally selling to engineering, sales, people ops.
Yeah.
Like there's so much opportunity for funny content around this, around like finding stuff, like wrong folders, sharing stuff like that everybody runs into. Just drive that engagement with memes, man.
And especially because their tone is already so casual. It's not like a great departure from their existing brand strategy. It's like, let's have some fun. And I'll ask Nick this in a sec, kind of comes into the sales side, which is like, it was interesting to see how not frequent the company was. And I know they're new, and I know that they're probably constrained in terms of their staff. And even though they raise some money, I'm sure that'll get put to use somehow. But it was interesting to see only a few things every once in a while. Almost now, it's not. There's the sort of extreme version of this is random acts of social. It's definitely not that. Like there is a strategy around it. It's just not consistent. And I want to see some funny stuff. Like I want to log in and follow Glean and be like, oh, haha, that's so funny. I experienced that the other day. Because then I'm like, oh, I need your product, sort of thing. Yeah. Anyways, Nick, what's up with sales?
Let me just give this a second.
Okay.
It is evident this is an engineering driven company, and the word choice and the opportunity is more engineering focused, which is funny because I don't know I would want to know, and I didn't find it when I was going through this, is who is the main persona that feels this pain more frequently than anyone else. And I actually think it might be marketing, because how many times have you lost an asset file and you're like, Morgan, what the hell did you call this? I can't find it in here. It's kind of what I was thinking. Sales, like the whole enablement play, you're like, okay, enablement, I know you guys created this content for us. Where is it? So I could, like, just knowing my workflows, I saw that, but everything takes you away from being consumed in feed, and everything is more traditional, tracked, which makes me think that this is a very traditional sales motion. And looking at some of the reps and how they present themselves, it screams, we bought a sequencer, we're going to go and use it to go and like go a volume and really get on the right radar that way. But then at the same time, they're also getting on podcasts and they're doing collaborations. So I kind of feel like they're actually at this pivot point where they're like, maybe there's something else. Maybe we can try something different, is what I'm seeing, kind of, and that's reading between the lines. But I feel like right now they're, with their recent announcement, they're going to try something new.
It was interesting. Poking through Sales Nav and looking at some of their sales teams. This is a smaller company than our previous one. They're at 122 total right now. It was, again, everybody has Sales Nav, and this time people are more active. Like, I found more profiles who are commenting and engaging, but from a content perspective, there wasn't a lot of unique extensions of marketing's efforts. It was a lot of blank reshares, which is cool. The pro of that is the employee advocacy and like getting the word out, and that's great that like there's some support for that inside the team, and probably some alignment between sales and marketing as a result. But it wasn't as clear that the sales motion. I think it's kind of what Nick articulated. It wasn't as clear who the salespeople were actually going after. So I think there's definitely some work to do on that. Let's see here. Where are the founders at? Who wants to take that?
Hey, their CEO is active on social. That was one thing.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That was cool.
So props.
And even in the reshares, he adds his own thoughts and like expands on it, which was cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree.
The head of sales did as well.
Yeah, it seems like they have good leadership there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw their director of sales and business ops was active, like a customer success manager. So I found like some folks active.
Awesome. Well, that's it's not common. I know we found 2 companies where that's kind of the case, but it's not not super common. How about what's the buzz? Earned media out in the world. Do we want to do our number thing again?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Let's do it.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Like, huh? Oh, wow. Sam, you have a high opinion of them. I was at like a 4. What did you find that I didn't?
I think it was mostly just the things that I was finding around social, like their featured articles, like Forbes, TechCrunch, getting shout outs around social that their CEO was sharing, that they were resharing, and then like their podcast hits. But yeah, that my 8 might have been generous. I'm curious to hear what you all think.
Brooklyn? Nick?
Want to go first, Brooklyn?
Yeah, I mean, previously it was 2, this one 5, because I've heard of the company. I feel like I knew this solution. So it was more of like differentiating themselves. So right in the middle, mostly because of the missed opportunities that you were talking about previously.
Sweet. Yeah, I found more out there. The CEO's active, podcast interviews, all the rest of that gets reshared and published across traditional blog searches, which is cool. So definitely an improvement. I just wanted to see more, basically.
Yeah. Exactly.
I kind of feel like it's like that LinkedIn profile evolution of like the digital resume, and then there's like the sales focused promo reel, and then there's the resource center. And I feel like some people are making the move to level 3, but I feel like most people are just in that level 2 of like, it's all about it's kind of more about the company focused, more about the product focused. It doesn't put the product in like your hands or really put your workflow or you first. it's more company first from what I was reading. But I think that they're making the move. That's why I said they're changing. It looks like they're pivoting to that more resource. We'll see what happens the next couple months.
So, last question. Can we find some words that rhyme with glean? There's obviously an obvious one for today, I think.
I had that one. Let's hear you say it, Morgan.
Beam.
Yeah.
Sam and Brooklyn's beam. There's
Good thing we didn't call it periwinkle.
Yeah. Obviously, there's clean.
That's the first one that came to mind.
Mm-hmm. What else do we
Sheen.
have? Sheen. Obscene. Ooh.
Going with the multi-syllable.
It's hard. Mean, of course. Somebody's mean.
Teen.
Ooh. Okay, there's a lot of rhyming opportunities. So Gleam, hit us up if you want us to write some rhyming scheme for some marketing thing. Clearly, we can figure it out. All right. Well, we are Mean Green Glean Machine. Somebody commented. Thank you, Amanda.
Killed it.
Mean Green Glean Machine. I love it. So this has been the first Content Power Hour comparing Torch and Glean. Thank you to everyone who's joined us, who's been watching, and who's been throwing in some comments. And Sam, Brooklyn, thank you both for participating. Nick, same to you. Do we have any closing thoughts on today's companies or other things that have come up for you?
Consume and feed. I think is the biggest thing. If I could give any advice, it's I'm not going to go somewhere else. And LinkedIn also tells me not to go somewhere else now. And if I'm on my phone, it really makes sure I can't go somewhere else now. So make it so I can consume it without having to work for it.
Connect your content. Blog posts should not be separate from social, which should not be separate from more bottom of funnel. Like, figure out where the connection points lie, because it's going to make it easier for everybody in the long run and better content in the long run.
Well said.
Well said.
I love it. Share those insights natively on social.
Couldn't agree more. And I think my last one is just returning to have fun. I mean, of course, stay aligned to your brand strategy and however you need to communicate with your prospects. But especially for Glean's casual tone, send out some memes, connect with people. It's fun, especially if you're an individual producer instead of the company producer. Like, it's social. We can be social, basically.
Use GIFs in your LinkedIn messages.
Yes. I love a good GIF DM. Do you get a lot of those, Brooklyn? Yeah.
I send a lot of those.
Okay. Nick's the same. Yeah. I always get gifts. All right, everyone. Thank you. This has been the Content Power Hour. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks.